Have you ever mourned a love that never even began? Not because it wasn't real for you, it was, but because the connection, the promise, the fantasy never lived outside your own hope. Letting go of someone you never really had is one of the most confusing kinds of heartbreak. You're grieving a story you wrote alone, but every chapter felt real. And now you're left wondering, was I ever enough? Or did I just imagine the whole thing? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the silent grief of letting go when there was never anything to hold in the first place. One of the most painful things about letting go of someone you never truly had is realizing how deeply you were invested in something that was never real in the way you believed. It's like grieving a ghost, something you felt, imagined, dreamed about, but never fully touched. And the hardest part? It felt real to you. The late night conversations, the subtle glances, the emotional chemistry. It all created this world that felt like the beginning of something. But it wasn't. Not really. Not fully. And trying to make sense of that can feel like trying to hold water in your hands. It slips through, but the ache of having held it remains. What we don't realize is how seductive potential can be. It doesn't even need to materialize into something concrete to consume us emotionally. In fact, the absence of definition often makes it stronger. Because when there are no clear boundaries, our mind fills in the gaps. We start to imagine what the relationship could become, how it might evolve if only the timing were better, if only they could see us the way we see them. We project our hopes onto them like a canvas, creating this rich, detailed portrait of love, and then we fall for the painting, not the person. We become intoxicated with the what if. We fall for the possibility, not the reality. And that's where the danger lies, because the possibility of something has no obligation to show up, to call back, to commit. It only has to exist in our mind. That's the emotional trap. We tell ourselves, they could have loved me if, or there was something there, I know it. And maybe there was. Maybe there was a flicker of attraction, or a shared vulnerability, or a charged moment that sparked something inside you. But a spark doesn't always mean a fire will follow. And too often, we stay holding on to the ember long after it's gone cold, hoping it will ignite again. We start to assign meaning to every little interaction. That one compliment they gave you suddenly feels like a confession of love. That double text feels like proof they care. The way they looked at you across the room, that must mean something, right? We hang our hearts on these tiny moments, building them into a narrative that serves the story we want to believe. But love, real love, doesn't live in the gray. It lives in clarity, in presence, in commitment. It shows up. It doesn't keep you questioning. When someone doesn't give us clear signals, when they never say, I want something real with you, but they also never fully pull away, it creates a space where our hope runs wild. That space between something and nothing becomes the breeding ground for obsession. You don't know where you stand, so you keep trying to decode every word, every silence, every like on social media. You start to imagine yourself as the exception. You believe if you're just patient enough, just kind enough, just supportive enough, they'll wake up and realize what they've been missing. But that's not love. That's longing. That's emotional starvation. And the danger of being emotionally starved is that you start to believe that crumbs are a meal. A casual message suddenly feels intimate. A delayed response feels like effort. And before you know it, you're addicted to the minimal effort they're giving you, because it's just enough to keep you hopeful, but never enough to give you peace. And maybe deep down you've known all along. You've known that they weren't really choosing you. You've known that if someone truly wanted you, they wouldn't leave you wondering. But hope is a powerful drug. And when we're lonely or healing from something else, that hope can blind us. We mistake ambiguity for depth. We confuse temporary attention with affection. And we make excuses endless excuses for why they aren't stepping up. He's just afraid of getting hurt again. She doesn't want to rush into anything. They're bad at texting, but I know they care. But here's the hard truth. People who want to be in your life, really be in your life, find a way to be there. They don't let confusion linger. They don't leave you half-held, half-loved, half-seen. They show up in a way that makes you feel safe, valued, and chosen. And if they're not doing that, then what are you really holding on to? What we have to recognize is that staying attached to someone who is emotionally unavailable, inconsistent, or uninterested doesn't say anything about them. It says something about us. It tells us what we're willing to accept. It reflects how much we believe we're worth. And the moment we realize that we've been shaping our lives around someone who hasn't even shown up, that's the moment we have to ask ourselves a new question. Why am I waiting for someone who isn't waiting for me? Letting go isn't about denying the feelings you had. It's about acknowledging that you deserve more than uncertainty. You deserve to be chosen, freely, fully, and without hesitation. And anyone who makes you question your worth, anyone who leaves you in emotional limbo while they figure things out, isn't loving you. They're draining you. Your heart is not a placeholder. Your love is not a backup plan. And the sooner you release the fantasy, the sooner you open yourself to something real. There's a certain kind of pain that doesn't come with a clean break or a final conversation. It comes with silence, with unanswered messages, with someone slowly disappearing without ever really saying goodbye. That kind of rejection, when it's never spoken aloud, hurts more than most people realize. Because when someone walks away without clarity, they don't just leave you behind. They leave you with questions. And questions, when left unanswered, can torment your mind far longer than any clear no ever could. It's hard to let go of someone when you never got to understand what you meant to them in the first place. You replay conversations, analyze every look, revisit every word they said, trying to figure out what you missed. You begin to doubt your own perception. Was it all in my head? Did I make up the connection? Was that just another option they were entertaining? The silence doesn't just hurt. It makes you feel like a fool for ever believing there was something more. And that's the thing. Without clear rejection, your mind doesn't know where to land. It keeps spinning. You keep hoping. Maybe they're just going through something. Maybe they're not ready yet. Maybe if you just wait a little longer, they'll come back with an explanation, an apology, a confession that yes, they felt it too. But here's the uncomfortable truth. People who care don't leave you in confusion. They don't disappear when things get inconvenient. They don't stay quiet when they know you're hurting. If someone truly saw your worth, if they truly valued your presence, they wouldn't risk losing you through silence. They'd fight for clarity. They'd make sure you knew where you stood with them. We often romanticize emotional unavailability. We assume that someone pulling away means they're struggling with their feelings, that they're overwhelmed by how deeply they care. But emotional unavailability isn't a love language. It's a red flag. It's a sign that they're not ready or willing to show up for you in the way you need. And if you're honest with yourself, you know that deep down. You just didn't want to accept it. Because accepting it would mean accepting that this beautiful story you held on to was only ever written by you. There's a kind of strength required in being the one to give yourself the ending. To say, they may never say it, but their silence told me enough. Because closure isn't about hearing what you want. It's about deciding that not hearing is all the answer you need. It's about recognizing that the absence of effort, of communication, of consistency, is its own kind of message. But even deeper than that, it's about recognizing the role you've played in your own pain. Because at some point, it's not about what they did. It's about what you allowed to continue. It's about the way you kept showing up for someone who wasn't showing up for you. And that realization can cut deeper than any rejection. Because it forces you to face the fact that you abandoned yourself in the name of hope. You saw the signs. The hot and cold behavior, the last-minute texts, the vague answers, the way they never really made space for you in their life. But instead of calling it out, you made excuses. You convinced yourself they were busy, confused, scared. You minimized your own needs so you could keep feeling close to someone who was never truly there. And when you do that long enough, you begin to forget what it feels like to be emotionally safe. You start believing that love is supposed to feel anxious, uncertain, unfinished. But that's not love. That's survival. That's trauma dressed up as loyalty. And you deserve so much more than that. You deserve to be someone's choice, not their convenience. You deserve effort, not breadcrumbs. You deserve someone who makes you feel seen, heard, wanted, not someone who leaves you questioning your worth in their absence. Sometimes the most radical thing you can do for yourself is to stop waiting, to stop hoping they'll come back with the words you needed, to stop holding space for someone who never made room for you. That's not giving up. That's choosing yourself. And it's one of the hardest, most courageous choices you'll ever make. Because when you finally pull your energy back, when you reclaim your time, your attention, your heart, you create space for something better. You teach yourself on a deep, soul level that you are not someone who waits to be picked. You're someone who walks away when the energy is not matched, when the effort isn't mutual, when the silence speaks louder than any words. And here's what happens when you choose yourself. The ache doesn't disappear overnight, but your power begins to return. Slowly, quietly. You feel it in the boundaries you start to enforce, in the peace you begin to reclaim, in the way you no longer check your phone, hoping for a message that used to make your heart race, in the way your body relaxes when you realize you're no longer in emotional limbo. You're not hard to love. You're not asking for too much. You just asked the wrong person. And now you get to ask better questions. Not why didn't they choose me, but why was I so willing to be an option? Not what did I do wrong, but why didn't I walk away the first time I was made to feel unsure? You cannot heal in the same space that broke you. You cannot stay in the waiting room of someone else's uncertainty and expect to feel whole. The love you're searching for, the deep, grounded, soul-anchoring love, begins when you decide that you are no longer available for anything less. Letting go is so often painted as weakness, as giving up, as admitting defeat. But the truth is, letting go, really letting go, is one of the strongest things a person can do. It's not walking away from love. It's walking away from almost love, from the maybes and what-ifs that have kept you emotionally stuck. It's choosing your dignity over a fantasy. It's saying, I might have felt something beautiful, but I refuse to keep pouring into something that leaves me empty. There comes a moment, usually quiet, sometimes tear-filled, when you finally see things clearly. When you no longer chase their attention or reread the messages or analyze the silence. Instead, you sit with yourself and say, this isn't it. This isn't what I deserve. And in that moment, you don't feel strong. You feel shattered. But that quiet decision, that choice to stop hoping they'll change or suddenly become what you needed, that's what builds your strength. Because choosing to let go when your heart still wants to hold on is the bravest act of self-respect there is. People will tell you that you need closure to move on, but the most powerful kind of closure is the one you give yourself. You stop needing the apology. You stop needing the confession. You stop needing them to tell you that you mattered. Because you start to realize you always mattered. Whether they saw it or not is irrelevant. Your worth was never supposed to be proven by someone else's recognition. It was always yours. Unshakable. Undeniable. You just forgot for a while. When you stop waiting for validation, when you stop replaying the could-have-beens, you start to come home to yourself. You start to recenter. And from that place, you can begin again, not with them, but with you. You stop chasing people who confuse you, and start looking for the clarity you deserve. You stop making excuses for someone's inconsistency and start asking, what about me needs healing if I keep attaching myself to people who don't choose me back? It's not about blaming yourself. It's about waking up to the patterns, to the way you give your all to someone who only gives you fragments, to the way you shrink to fit into someone's life instead of building a life where you feel expansive. And maybe for the first time, you stop begging to be loved and start deciding how you want to be loved. That's where the shift happens. You begin to trust that love isn't supposed to hurt like this, that it's not supposed to feel like a guessing game, that if you're constantly feeling anxious, unsettled, or not enough, it's not love. Real love creates safety. It creates presence. It chooses you, not just in the good moments, not just when it's easy, but consistently. And you start to realize that anyone who didn't do that, who didn't meet you with the same energy you were willing to give, is not someone you need to chase. Because the right love doesn't make you feel like a backup plan. It doesn't leave you waiting. It doesn't show up half present. It doesn't breadcrumb you just enough to keep your hope alive. The right love doesn't leave room for confusion. You won't need to decode mixed signals or hold on to every word like it's a lifeline. You'll know, because it'll feel calm, not chaotic, grounded, not high stakes. And most importantly, you won't feel like you're fighting for someone to simply see you. You don't need a love that breaks you to teach you how strong you are. You've already been strong. You've already survived the aching silence, the unanswered questions, the hope that turned into disappointment. And now, you're allowed to want more. You're allowed to say, I'm not settling for anything that makes me feel small. You're allowed to draw a line, even if they never did. So many people confuse attachment with love. But attachment is often born out of fear. The fear of being alone, the fear of not finding better, the fear that this was your one shot. But love, real love, is never rooted in fear. It's rooted in freedom, in knowing that even if you walk away, even if you let go, even if you close the door, they never had the power to define you. Because your value doesn't depend on being chosen. It depends on how you choose yourself. And that's the next chapter. Not waiting, not wondering, but choosing. You get to choose who you give your energy to. You get to choose how you allow yourself to be treated. You get to decide that this emotional limbo, this one-sided investment, this hope built on nothing solid, isn't enough for you anymore. There's something incredibly powerful about being the one who walks away from the fantasy. Not because it wasn't beautiful in your mind, but because you're ready for something real, something mutual, something that shows up. And to make room for that, you have to release what never truly held you. You don't have to hate them. You don't have to rewrite the whole story to make them the villain. You just have to honor the truth, that what you felt was real for you, but not for them. And it's okay. You're allowed to grieve it, to miss it, to wish it had been more. But you're not meant to stay stuck there. You're meant to grow, to rise, to remember who you are without the weight of waiting for someone who never truly showed up. This next part of your life, this next version of you, it begins when you stop proving your worth and start protecting it. When you finally stop asking, why didn't they choose me? And instead whisper, thank you for the space you left, because now I choose me. Letting go of someone you never had might feel like tearing out a part of yourself. But in reality, you're clearing space. For clarity, for peace, for real connection, and most importantly, for yourself. You don't owe anyone your silence, your confusion, or your endless waiting. What you owe is to the version of you who deserve a love that's real. Not imagined, not someday, but now. If this message stirred something in you, I want to hear it. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share your experience, because someone else out there needs to know they're not alone. Like this video if it helped you. Share it with someone who needs this reminder. and subscribe for more transformational conversations like this one. And finally, let me know in the comments, what topic should we explore next? Your voice matters here. This is your space. Let's grow stronger together.